Jesus, that the living Jesus spoke and Judas Thomas, the twin, recorded. He said, "Whoever finds the interpretation of these sayings will not taste death." Number 49, saying 49. Jesus said, "Blessed are those who are alone and chosen. You will find the kingdom. For you have come from it, and you will return there again." Jesus said, if some say to you, "Where have you come from?" say to them, "We have come from the light," where the light came into being by itself, established itself, and appeared in an image of the light. If they say to you, "Are you the light?" say, "We are its children, and we are the chosen of the living Father." If they ask you, "What is the evidence of your Father in you?" tell them, "It is motion and rest." Hello, welcome, Chris, Roots and Waves. I'm going to move on to number 54. Jesus said, "Blessed are the poor. Yours is the kingdom of heaven." Blessed is the one who has suffered. That one has found life. Jesus said, "Blessed are you when you are hated and prosecuted, and no one will discover the place where you have been prosecuted." Jesus said, "Blessed are those who have been persecuted in their hearts. They truly know the Father. Blessed are those who are hungry, for the stomach of the famished will be filled. If you bring forth what is within you, what you have will save you. If you do not have that within you, what you do not have within you will kill you." Jesus said, "I shall destroy this house, and no one will be able to rebuild it." I had the thought the other day, this was the kind of the equivalent of the Gospel of Thomas, equivalent of the Sermon on the Mount and the Sermon on the Plain. And today is the sixth Sunday of Ordinary Time, and in Luke it went over the Sermon on the Plain, and I will read that right now. I believe that the Gospel of Thomas was the first one that was recorded, that the earliest sayings of Jesus were just sayings, and they were completely devoid of context. So in the Sermon on the Mount, you might look at it, it's on top of the mountain. He speaks these words on top of the mountain, and then in the plain, Jesus is coming down the mountain, and he's speaking these words on the plain, on the foothills of the mountains. In the mountains, the mountaintop experience, the epiphany, the peak experience. And so those who were on the mountain listening to this sermon, they were in a peak experience sort of way, because mountaintops represent a state of being closer to God, and the ground, the bottoms of the valleys and the plains is closer to the earth. So in the numbers, you would look at 9 as being a God number and 6 being a earth number. And I will read the Sermon on the Plain just as soon as I can flip to that page in my missal. I was thinking in the terms of, in my title here, how Jesus saved me from Christianity. and that Jesus saved me from Christianity. And if you look at what is Christianity as we know it, it had its roots in the 3rd century, between 321 and 380. Constantine, the Roman Emperor Constantine, who was a pagan, a worshiper of the sun god, he saw a vision of a cross and used that to propel him to win a battle, to win a war. And then the beginnings of the church began under Constantine. That's the church institutional, the church that we know today, with all the rules and the dogma and so forth. It's not to say that the church before that did not have rules and dogmas, but there were multiple versions of the church. And the church that had different beliefs, from various beliefs, from either that Jesus was not a divine being, to Jesus being a divine being. There was a whole plethora of beliefs that existed in the early church, from including the institutionalized version, or the proto-institutionalized version of church that we have, or that came into being in the 3rd century. And Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire in the 380s. And between the 320s and the 380s, there really wasn't an official Bible. And that's one thing that so many people today in the church just don't realize, is they don't know that for a couple hundred years, everything was fluid, and there were multiple ways of being, multiple ways. And to me, that just suggests that there is still multiple ways. And what I like about, like, say, the Sermon on the Mount, everyone likes the Sermon on the Mount better because it's more eloquently written in Matthew, versus Luke is not as eloquently written. And then when you see the equivalents, I read some of those equivalents when I started out from the Gospel of Thomas, and it's very rough, and it's spread throughout the sayings. And so I will. Where was that? I'm looking at that's the 7th Sunday. And so in the 6th Sunday of Ordinary Time, we have Luke. It's Luke 6:17 through 26. When Jesus came down the mountain, he stopped at a level stretch where there were many of his disciples. A large crowd of people was with them from all of Judea and Jerusalem and the coast of Tyre and Sidon. Then raising his eyes to his disciples, he said, "Blessed are you poor, the reign of God is yours. Blessed are you who hunger, filled you shall be. Blessed are you who are weeping, you shall laugh. Blessed shall you be when men hate you, and when they ostracize you and insult you and proscribe your name as evil because of the Son of Man. On the day they do so, rejoice and exult, for your reward shall be great in heaven. Thus it was that their fathers treated the prophets. But woe to you, rich, for your consolation is right now. Woe to you who are full, you shall go hungry. Woe to you who laugh now, you shall weep in your grief. Woe to you all whose, when you speak well of you, their fathers treated the false prophets in just this way. And this is the gospel of the Lord. And so if I look at that sense of that prosecution in saying number 49, in saying 49 of the Gospel of Thomas, and let's see how fast I can get there. In saying 49, Jesus said, "Blessed are those who are alone and chosen. You will find the kingdom." Welcome, Sam. Welcome. Welcome. Essence of the Moon. Welcome. And so I think what I'm going to do from now on is I'm just going to use this after church chat time to read from the Gospel of Thomas and so forth. I'm kind of a little bit scattered today. I've had a headache, so I'm not completely dialed in. Welcome, Fatima. Welcome. But I was thinking of this. Blessed are you who are lone and chosen. I was thinking of that in terms of blessed are you who are persecuted in this name. And so if you were to look at in the terms of not the church institutional, but the church uninstitutional, those who gather together in their mystical thoughts or their mysticism, gather together in their myriad of their different beliefs, because everybody does believe different things, and there is no right belief and no wrong belief. That's kind of what I believe. Of course, I could be wrong, and then when I'm wrong, I'll be, like damned to all eternity in hell on just kind of stuck in this state and never go to this state. The resurrection and the crucifixion. And this statement came to me, and I still haven't fleshed it out. I'm going to flesh it out. The title is very clickbaity, that Jesus saved me from Christianity, that Jesus saved me from the dogmatism of the church institutional. And you look at all the different versions of that, because the church today, especially in the United States, most of Protestant Christianity is based solely right out of Paul. It's in, and whereas the Catholic Church, the Orthodox Church, the Coptic Church, the Ethiopian Church, the Byzantine Church, all of these, the central focus was on that gospel experience. Yes, there is the all the whole end times eschatology that exists in there. I mean, I think it starts in Daniel. It's scattered throughout, and everybody loves the book of Revelations because they like how thrilling it is to think that you can apply that into today's world. And it is, you can apply it to today's world, but the only problem is with it is it's, if it has any historical application, it's in the way back. It's in the way back, in the way back time. It's not, the historical application of it is not right now. But if it is a book that is about your spiritual journey, and it is more of an advanced teaching, not something that you give to children, then it is something that happens continually. It happens continually throughout your life, and that continually you are cycling between all kinds of different states, all these different states of being. And welcome, Jeff. Welcome. A birth, a learning, and then a ego death, and a resurrection of a higher self. And then it continues. It goes back to a birth, a learning, an ego death, and a resurrection. And it continues on throughout your life as a birth, a stage of learning, an ego death, and a resurrection to new life. And for the most part, that's what that story is. If you look at the revelation, but within the revelation there are all kinds of things in it, all kinds of terrible creatures, all kinds of fear. The Oracle of Whimsy. Anyways, I'm not all that here today. I'm sorry. I have a little bit of a headache. I think I might have a sinus infection or something. So I'm going to flesh that idea out for my clickbaity title of Jesus Saved Me from Christianity. And I kind of think that too, because I remember a long time ago in my 20s, and I was having all kinds of the mountaintop experiences, especially coming from when I was in Israel. And then, but it kind of started before that, but there was like this sense of being taken on a journey, and here I am. I'm still on that journey, spamming those thoughts out into the internet, spamming those. Yeah, it'll get better soon. Kind of got a sore spot right here too. It's a little bit less. I'm kind of sore all through my glands. I'm hoping it's not. I'm hoping I don't have. I don't need more teeth pulled. I do have like $20,000 of dental work that need to be done, and I've been meaning to, like set up a GoFundMe, but my dental insurance doesn't cover root canals, nor does it doesn't cover crowns, and so all it does is cover extractions, and I don't want to lose my molars without having something. My molars, I've lost one back here, and the one underneath it is flapping up against another one. There's another one over here. The other one has a big giant hole in it. It really needs either needs to be taken care of. Those are my earthly things, of my body things, and so I probably should. I thought about doing a GoFundMe, but it's so hard to, for me. I'm so proud sometimes when it comes to like money or begging for money, but then you look at the Jesus story, and blessed are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom of God. And that's kind of funny, that whole thing of poverty in the United States. The wealthiest country in the world, and yet there's so much poverty, or poverty of spirit. I think there's more poverty of spirit than there is of physical poverty and so forth. I don't know if anything I said today had health issues. I don't know if anything I said here was even remotely coherent. If I spin forward a year, I'll be a hell of a lot more coherent with these Sunday after church chats. I'll probably start to even sound like a preacher, if I do that. But anyways, I thought this would. So you resonated with that. It was not, Chris. It's not my teaching. Remember, I'm just reading from old books that were buried. The Gospel of Thomas, and many of these books were outlawed around the time that the church became institutionalized. These were outlawed books, and then even within the realm of the canon. Yeah. All right, Jeff. Um, I'm going to. That's so. I mentioned a little bit. I was going to talk on the Dark Night of the Soul, but I was thinking I may do that another time. But I was really thinking in how to shape this particular program, and to really have its concentrations on stuff like this. A teacher would say that you stand against the principalities to enlighten, and yes, and so I'm gonna make my entire concentration on this, on the Gospel of Thomas, and maybe some of the other Gnostics, and then because I am a Catholic, I will be bringing in the Missal as we go along, and maybe before I close things out, I will just do like I've done on use this book as far as a diviner, and I'm going to flip into a random page and just read that. Your brother John is at the hospital. His girlfriend surgery. Yeah, appendix surgery. Yeah. Well, we should keep all them in our prayers. Okay, what does the random page say? A reading from the book of the prophet Baruch. Jerusalem, take off your robe of mourning and misery. Put on the splendor of the glory from God forever, wrapped in the cloak of justice from God. Bear on your head the mitre that displays the glory of the eternal name. For God will show you all the earth your splendor. You will be named by God forever. The peace of justice, the glory of God's worship. Take off your robe of mourning and misery. The random page from the book, yes. And I think Baruch is one of those books that exist in the Septuagint, but doesn't exist in the Protestant Bible, if I remember right, because there's the 72 books of the Septuagint. So when you look at the early church, and they did have a set of scriptures, but their set of scriptures was the 70, but there were two different versions of the Septuagint. And the Septuagint was the Hebrew scriptures translated into Greek. And so when Paul talks about reading from the Bible, reading from the scripture, they're not talking about the Gospels of Jesus. They're not talking about the letters of Paul. They're talking about the Septuagint. And so then when we spin forward into our world, and in our world we've completely divorced. We completely divorced the scriptures from the world in a context that it puts in it. That's why within the realm of Catholicism, it has this. It has the tradition, and it has the scripture, and it goes down on a parallel path. It goes through time, and you have the celebration of the saints, and the continued celebration of the saints, and that that were, as flawed as the Catholic Church is, or the Orthodox Church is, or the big church is, it still maintains that flow of tradition and history of, occasionally incorporating the saints into what the saints and the mystics learned through time, and incorporating it into the teaching of the church. But the church is such a huge organization; it moves so slow, and just creeps along and creeps along and creeps along. And I'm, and in some sense, I kind of believe that the church is dying. The church institutional, I think the church institutional is dying, and but that idea isn't new to me. I read about it in a magazine called, I think it was Christianity Today, and I believe I was in college, and it was an article on the church and how it was. This is like in the 90s. That in the 90s there was a prediction amongst theologians that by the end of this century, the Christian church would be almost gone. I mean, it would be small pieces of it left, but for the most part, the going into the future, that Christianity as we know it today would probably just is in the process of going extinct. And a lot of that is if its inability to move, and the people, and you have like Christ consciousness coming up in, or the consciousness of God coming up into the people, and people becoming aware of that. But the church doesn't change, and the church only accepts God, Christ consciousness as it corresponds, as it uplifts and affirms the faith of the past, and so the faith of the past, and so like my favorite philosopher, American philosopher, Henry David Thoreau, he was in Walden. I think he wrote Walden in the 1840s. When he wrote Walden, we had the telegraph lines, and we had the steam engines. Yeah, and so he wrote in this time, and what he said something, and I got it, and I've been trying to find, because I when I first went through Walden Pond, I went through it in an audio book, and this was something that I had heard in it. What I had heard in it is that every generation needs to come up with its own scriptures, and I think because Henry David Thoreau was an extremely brilliant person, just like a lot of the thinkers, the Renaissance thinkers, people coming out of the Renaissance thinkers, were also extremely brilliant, and they were brilliant in ways that we could never be, because we are, in our world, we are so distracted by our devices, and so forth. My light is reflecting off my glasses, and maybe we'll just move the light around so I'm not. There we go. And so every generation needs to connect themselves with this reality, with source consciousness, to be rooted in source consciousness. And one of the ways that the church kind of stands in the way of everything is it doesn't connect with that. It only connects with God consciousness from the past. Now, in many respects, the Protestant churches, they're like really loosey. They're really in the Wild West, and they're kind of like way out there with things, and they've they've latched themselves onto things like Calvinism, predestination, even though, like Augustine, I think, was the first church father to write about predestination. And that's something that I've never really liked. But if you are a lot of people, if you are an individual who doesn't believe in free will, then you will probably gravitate towards the idea of predestination. You are in spirit world and you choose what's going to happen, where you choose your parents and you choose your experience, and then you get dropped into an avatar, into this world, and then you live your life, and there are just things that happen along the way, and then big major point things that happen, and then you're whisked back, and you come down into the amusement park ride that is Earth, and you go back, and then you go back to your real life. And some might say that what happens here is destined to happen, but then maybe it's not. Maybe it's not. And then there are other people who think, no, I don't. Maybe we don't like something. Maybe it is, but maybe it's not. But then when you have that philosophy and you take it to its extremes, like what happens in with Calvinism, but Calvin wasn't that extreme as we go into the church today. All the little the heterodoxy of the church today, and within the various branches of Protestant Christianity, and some of them have taken that to an extreme, and then with that Calvinism, Augustinianism, predestination, they bring in the prosperity gospel. And then within that prosperity gospel, they say this is how you know who is chosen by God. You know by how much money they have. And so they're chosen in this prosperity gospel worldview are those who are the big pastors who have these big mega churches, and they have all this money flowing in. They got their private jets, and they have this and that, and they look at the world leaders, and the world leaders who have the most amount of money, they are chosen by God to lead. And that's what has come out of that predestination, Calvinism, and the merger of the prosperity gospel in there. Consciousness and neuroscience, yes, it is a very interesting topic. So I guess then we go back to who is chosen. Blessed are those who are alone and chosen. You will find the kingdom, for you have come from it, and you will return there again. You came from the kingdom, you came here, and you will go back to the kingdom. Saying 49 from the secret teachings of Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas. Jesus said, if some say to you, where have you come from? Say to them, we have come from the light, where the light came into being by itself, established itself, and appeared in an image of light. The image of light, the hermit's light. The hermit's light in the lamp that burns with no wick or fuel. Yeah, I hear you there, Sam. I'm worried too. And if they say to you, are you the light? Say, we are its children, and we are chosen of the living Father. If they ask you, what is your evidence of your Father in heaven? Tell them it is in motion and rest. And then Jesus says that we are to to love God. We love God through serving our neighbor, welcoming the stranger. There's a whole litany of things that that are talked about in the canonical Gospels on how to live that life. Blessed are the poor, for theirs, because in heaven they will find riches. But woe to the wealthy, because their glory is right here and right now. And I think that I may have actually put all this stuff together, didn't I? I started there and I went all over the place, and I came back to the Gospel of Thomas. But that whole notion of who is the chosen, I don't know. It kind of talks about that, but coming from the light. In our Lord's Prayer, Our Father who art in heaven, holy is your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done. To do the will of God brings the kingdom of heaven into the now. Essence, be safe, yes. You're going into vacation, Mrs. Essence of the Moon? Yeah, safe travels. Anyways, I think that's all I have. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, and doing that will is through service. And exactly how you do that, well, that's up to you, and determine how you serve your neighbor. And so, yeah, my sister and my oldest niece is having some surgery coming up. She has some issues with her kidneys, and they have to her kidney is in the wrong place in her body, and it causes extreme pain. And so my sister is going to Colorado for a few weeks, and she's having a surgery in Colorado, and to have some things worked on inside of her body to it's called nutcracker syndrome. The arteries and the veins are too close together, and they squeeze the arteries coming up from the kidneys. They squeeze the vein together and causing excruciating pain. Yeah, and so it's, yeah, hopefully she survives. But anyways, I guess I'll talk about some of these things a little bit more, about when I think I was talking about the whole idea that the church is dying, but for the church to become the living Christ on earth, it means that the will of God has to be done. Anyways, that's my message for the day, which is that. And so we'll just hang out here for a second, and I will go have my breakfast. Let's see, what did some people say in the chat here? We have Celine is packing up and getting ready to leave for a getaway in Pittsburgh. Okay. So you're vacationing in Pittsburgh? What's in Pittsburgh for you? Family, right? And so your sister has only one kid, and your father has 3 kidneys? Oh. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. And we have prayers for everyone. We need to pray for all of our world leaders. Keep your world leaders in your prayer, because after all, they are just as human as we are. The only thing that's different is they were given position and power to have, and then with the hopes that that they use their position and power justly and with mercy. But then again, I don't know. I thought about these things, about everything that is in them is in us. And it's very easy, and this will probably be a lesson for another time, that it is very easy to criticize these powerful people for how they behave. But if any one of us were to come suddenly into extreme wealth, we too would have similar behaviors, and the temptation to lose our empathy, the temptation to fall into a vortex of the body, to be stuck completely in the body, into that number 6, as far as in a biblical sense of what those numbers mean. Anyways, Sam, thank you for being here. Fatima, thank you for being here. Roots and Waves, thank you for being here, and I'll see you tomorrow, Roots and Waves, for our show. And on Tuesday, it'll be with Heather at Indigo, and we will be doing the Six of Swords. The Six of Swords. And next week, I will come back with something else from the Gospel of Thomas. We'll just be going through this, and then maybe I'll learn something more about it too. But I am just as guilty as everybody else is in the church, in that I have taken these sayings completely divorced from its historical context, and they are floating out in the world, free from their moorings of where they were created in. And so maybe in the future, I will be more organized, and instead of just doing this stream of consciousness right now, I might actually do what preachers do and root it into a historical context. I can do that, but right now I think that will take too much energy to do that, so I think I'm going to do it stream of consciousness from now on, and maybe just a few thoughts before and in the day, a few thoughts through the day. I'll reflect on things, and then it'll just be this. But I am going to flesh out that whole statement that Jesus saved me from Christianity, and I'm thinking of that in terms of the church institutional, and not necessarily from anyways, that's all I got for today. I'm at 43 minutes in, and I don't want to go on for hours and hours. And I'll talk to you all later. Yeah, have a great week, and I will be back around the similar time with another one of these in 1 week. But I will be doing lots of art through the week. Like I say, Tuesday, I think at 1 o'clock my time, it'll be Heather, and we will be doing the Six of Swords. And then I think on Friday, I am Karen and I are getting back together. We're going to finish the star card, and then I will do some pop-ups. And so, like last night, I painted this. I'm still working on this one though, a watercolor. And then there's this one. I might do another little coat of this one. So here's my my latest kind of an ocean scene. I think it looks pretty cool. And then we'll just kind of finish up with these glasses here. There we go. There's my glasses. Maybe I'll let this be my for my thumbnail image. Anyways, we'll see you guys the next time. Thank you very much for your support. Bye-bye.